Good evening. I've always wanted to do that, you know. Is this on? I did it, but you couldn't hear me because it wasn't on. Welcome, everyone, to this evening's program. For all of us here in the room, we appreciate you being here. For those that are watching on Facebook Live, thank you and welcome. For those in the audience, yes, we are streaming this on Facebook Live, so if there's any of your friends that were not able to be here tonight, please alert them to that because they could be watching along. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Lori Zabata. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations for Johnson & Wales University, and I'm also an alum myself, so thank you so much for coming out. I'm so happy to be here with you this evening because this is the culmination of a long time coming for the planning of this event, and it's sure to be an exciting night. In late 2016, we brought a group of alumni together in order to figure out kind of how we were moving forward with alumni programming, and we asked them to form a committee called the Ad Hoc Alumni Professional Development Programming Committee, and really help us figure out how we were going to move forward with offering alumni programming to you in this way. And this is out of their work and effort, benchmarking, attending events, speaking with their fellow alumni. We came to what we know today is as JWU Connects. JWU Connects is a program, an umbrella program, if you will, under which this program tonight falls, and so we appreciate their efforts. We launched JWU Connects 9 months after they began the effort, and we launched with 2 networks. The first was the Hospitality Culinary Network. The second was the Emerging Leaders Network, and I'm happy to report that the third, the Marketing and Advertising Network, will launch this year. I'd like to point out a special member of the audience, Hazem Gamal, class of 1990, who is our national chair of JWU Connects. Hazem, thanks to you and your team for putting all of this together and really launching JWU Connects for us. We really appreciate all your efforts and all that you do for us. So thank you. So tonight we take a deeper dive within the Hospitality and Culinary Network to the world of sports entertainment and event management. And this really came together as a casual conversation of some of our alumni with our office, some of our faculty members, and I'm really thrilled that we're here tonight to see it happen. I'd like to point out some of the alumni who are part of that effort that are in the room tonight. Brittany Aber, Jordan Lacey, Sarah Jane Lagala, and Kelly McVeigh. From what I know, tonight is sure to be an enjoyable evening, so thank you all. But before we get started, one final thing, I'd like to point out some special members of the audience that are here with us today, members of our SEAM faculty. Lee Eskelson, Michael Gilbert, Patrick Leary, Lou Pilano, and Liz Van Patten. And last but certainly not least, professor, fellow alum, and our moderator for this evening, Elizabeth Pansiera.
Just checking to make sure it's still on. Thank you all for being here again. Before we get started, I just think it's super important that I thank you personally. It's a full circle experience to come back in this role, so I'm super excited. To get started, I'm just going to have you guys introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your current role and what a day in the life consists of for you today.
Hi, my name is Brittany Aber. I work at Columbia Records in their touring and events department. So my job is kind of twofold. The first half we do the touring side, which is scheduling artist promo, booking travel, dealing with managers, budgets, all of that fun stuff. The second part is events, which is my favorite, and we do everything from concerts to promo tours. We do album listening parties, meet and greets. So it's really it varies, and it varies by artist, it varies by day. I do a lot of site visits and budgets and all of that fun stuff.
Hi, my name is Kate Motley McGlynn. I am the Director of Operations for Just Gordon Proper Fun, which, like Brittany, also has two folds. We are event design and event management, production, and consulting. A day in the life for me is a full-time client liaison, whether you've hired us to do a huge nonprofit gala for 1,000 people, or your daughter's bat mitzvah, which in New York are more expensive than the nonprofit galas. So whether you're hiring us for all of our services or just one, I will be your day-to-day contact, as well as the person who executes the event and also works with all of the vendors.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Buffalo. I'm the National Director of Operations with Flick Hospitality, a part of Compass Group USA, supporting their American Express Centurion Lounge concept. So I travel every week, probably about 75% of the month, between one of 8 properties at a given airport, between Seattle, Miami, San Francisco, Dallas, Houston, and it continues. And tomorrow I actually head to Seattle, so if anyone's headed that way, I'll find you there. But what I do in any given day, I assist with food, beverage, and facility maintenance. We do have various programs that do get executed in our lounges for American Express, whether they are being geared and marketed towards our high-end cardholders. But what I also assist with is relationships with Jim Meehan, our national mixologist, Anthony Giglio, our wine curator, or various celebrity partners that help us curate our food menus in our lounges. So any given week, I'm traveling, doing some menu development, beverage operations, or budgets, etc. So, jack of all trades. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dana Massarelli. I work at Verizon. I do events, plain and simple. Big part of my job are our B2B hospitality events. So we have sponsorships with the NFL, NBA, IndyCar, and with those sponsorships, we plan events. So we use the assets, suite nights, tickets, and we plan events for our corporate B2B customers. Such as the Super Bowl, Windy 500, NBA game nights, NBA All-Star game. We bring our customers there, we create a really cool experience, and they get to say they got to go to the Super Bowl with Verizon. I do some things, also some different types of events like recognition. I do leadership events, I do small dinners. So I kind of dabble in a lot of different events, and yeah, that's it.
Fantastic, thank you. To just take that one step further, can you talk a little bit about your career progression and how you became a part of your current position? We have a wide range of alumni, so just how did you get to where you are today, and what led you to that position?
So this is going to sound like I made it up just for this event, but it really was because of my JWU internship. I have been at Columbia for 4 years, and before that I interned for them. And JWU is one of the only schools that required you to do a full 40-hour-a-week internship. And so because I was in their faces every day, I got more responsibility every day. So then I went back and graduated college, and then they called me 8 months later and said, we have a position open and we want to hire you. So I got lucky in that aspect, but it was really because I interned and because JWU made me do it 40 hours a week. And since then, I started out as an assistant for the VP of Touring and Events, and I've since then moved on. I'm now a specialist. So I have a little more responsibility. I have my own roster of artists. But I really do, when anyone asks me, I say it was because of my internship. So do your internship.
My internship also led me to exactly where I am today. I started with Marquee Nightclub, which some of you might have had to do the case study your senior year. It's now Tao Group, so I was with them for 3.5 years. And while I was working with a client who is now my boss, sitting right in the front row, she offered me a position to work for her company because of the experience that she had had as me as a vendor. So she knew that I knew the questions to ask our own clients, and she knew that I was going to be a good asset to the team because she had the opportunity to work with me. So I ended up leaving 2 weeks later, and now I've been with Jasper and Proper Fund for 3.5 years.
During my undergrad, I was working in the alumni office and often involved with various events. So I was very fortunate through my colleagues in that office, and through some of that networking, I was able to meet who would then become my boss. So right out of college, I was fortunate to join Compass Group in a brand new account opening in the Seaport of Boston, brand new neighborhood. and it was really exciting to join the company in an account opening, see what was going on. I joined as a catering manager, and it was a $1 million property, so every day of the week there was something to go on, and pretty entertaining. So I was doing conference services, running their cafe services as well. And during that time, my property was also growing in the market, and through that capacity, I also became a trainer for my company. So through some of those skills of cafe services, catering services, and a little bit of the training coordination, that really helped me then grow into my next role where I am now today, traveling the country, doing a little bit of all those little faceted roles.
So when I graduated, I had these big dreams of working for Disney World. So I wasn't thinking I was going to end up where I am today. I thought I was going to be in Orlando laying by a pool and playing a princess, but here I am. Well, I did the Disney College program after I graduated from JWU. I was there for about 6 months. I worked in retail, wore a colorful shirt, and smiled and waved for 6 months. Realized it wasn't my thing, didn't like being away from my family. Saw a job with Compass Group at the Verizon account. I applied to the job, had about 3 phone interviews, and I moved home January 5th, moved home to New Jersey January 5th, and I started January 7th at the Verizon account. I was a concierge, so Verizon has a huge headquarters in Basking Ridge, New Jersey. And when you walk in, you have people sitting in the front, asking if you need anything, and that's what I did. I booked conference rooms, I booked event spaces, and from there I met a lot of different people. I met a woman who planned all of the internal events for Verizon, and I became her best friend. I constantly was like, do you need an assistant? Do you need a job? What can I do for you? How can I help you? I can do whatever you need me to do. And she finally gave me a job, and I worked for her. She worked for the Employee Communications Department. I worked for her for about 2 years. I did a lot of high-level meetings, a lot of face-to-face meetings, very corporate meetings, a lot like this, in a ballroom, food and beverage, managed hotel room blocks. And then from there, I transitioned to my current role, and living the dream. Here we are.
Great, a lot of Johnson & Wales introductions and getting us out into the industry. I love to hear that. I am looking to hear major success and maybe one major failure, not that you have any, while working in the industry, and how you overcame it or how it helped your progression in the industry.
So a recent great success my team had, we have, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the young boy bands these days. There's one called Pretty Much that we signed them in May of 2016. It's been a minute. So they weren't taking off as well as we wanted them to. My boss and I together planned this whole 3-week-long promo tour for them. And so the promo tour is basically like planning an event, but in a bunch of different cities. It's the same thing, and especially with a boy band, it's a lot of teenage girls screaming. So we had to really fight for the budget. We said we think this band is worth it. We think that we got to get them in front of people, and the whole point of this is to raise awareness about them, get kids posting about them. We did a meet and greet in every city. We did a meet and greet. The band did a meet and greet with 500 people. So we took pictures, we got the word out. We did this whole case study after, and our return on investment was great. We got so many, one big thing we follow is band socials. So their social media, their followers jumped, and then they got on tour with Khalid right after that, who blew up last year. So that was a huge success for us that our team was pushing out, saying we have to do this promo tour. And after the end of the 3 weeks, the band was really, a lot more in the presence of, social media and music. And they're working on it. They're still getting there. So hopefully you'll hear about them in a couple more months. We'll do another tour.
You don't have any failures? It's okay.
I don't have any failures either. A really great success. A really great recent success is I had the opportunity of working with West Point Academy, and it was the first event that I was executing on my team alone. Another planner had started the job, some people had taken over it, and West Point had seen a couple people in my role, so I was very nervous to show them that I was here to stay and that I would execute to the highest ability of their expectations. So the first event started 7 years prior to me starting, and I was to do the culmination of the Long Gray Line fundraiser. And at the end of our fundraising and all of the work that had been done, the Long Gray Line raised $420 million. So it was a huge success. The event was flawless, and it was really the thing that showed my team and the vendors and my colleagues and West Point that not only was I capable of executing their event in this capacity, but all of their future events moving forward. So that was good.
So one of the last fun programs I had hosted in my prior contract was our National Service Day. And partnering with that was the various intricacies of these 2 high-rise buildings, each 16 stories, various conference rooms on each floor. And we were also hosting a family day and involved all that. So there was over 1,200 guests in those 2 high-rises. So to coordinate all that between the manpower of my staff, the security procedures involved with all that, having kids from various ages of toddlers to 6 years old getting lost, or the potential threat of that getting lost in these high-rises, to coordinate all those different intricacies with this massive budget and the various carnival activities that we had hosted was just a really great send-off between the transition planning of my staff before I departed, and then my accumulation of my departure. So I thought that was really self-rewarding to see my staff take that experience, them building that experience with me, and that was my swan song in some capacity. So it was cute. But some opportunities. I just want to throw one thing out there. Don't be afraid to separate ways with your mentor in some capacity. I don't want to sound weird with that. But there comes a point where you need to realize you've grown as much as you can from that individual, and that you can separate on a mutual term. You learn, and you then grow from that experience. That at some point you do need to say, thank you for taking me along this journey. I think I need to go on the next step on my own. And that was one thing I had to learn in a little bit of a hard way in my career, where we had differences in how we wanted to execute a program. But I knew at that point, with being the subject matter expert in that area, that I knew I was doing the right thing for my client and my team. So always take some opportunities to self-reflect in those moments as well.
I would say one of my biggest successes was this past year. I actually had to plan our event at our NBA All-Star game this year that fell 2 weeks after our Super Bowl. So it was very busy. You did not want to talk to me for that whole month. But I was actually the one who had that entire experience. And because my boss was doing Super Bowl. So I was in Minnesota, wrapped in a blanket, 2 o'clock in the morning, typing up emails and doing a million different things. But at the end of it, we had a customer who was able to close the deal with Verizon at that event, and he said it was because of the NBA All-Star experience that he had. Thank you very much. So, so that was really good, and it was really good to hear, and everyone had a really good time, and all that hard work really paid off, and it was good. I don't have any failures either, so.
I should have known no failures in this group. I need to delete that out. Thank you guys all. Lots of success and super exciting. The next set of questions are going to really pinpoint the industries that each of these individuals represent and kind of dive into some content that are hot topics in the industry. So, Brittany, I think that you've already kind of alluded to this social following and social media of new and upcoming bands. So my question is, as the entertainment industry continues to grow and stakeholders are really invested in multiple ways, how are you integrating technology, and what are some of the tips and tricks you might be able to share with us?
Sure. Yeah, technology, it's so crazy because as I'm sure with every industry, the music industry has changed so much over the last year and a half, and everything is about Instagram and Facebook Live. A lot of our artists will do interviews now, and they're live streams for the whole world to see, so that's completely different than, an article, a newspaper article or magazine article that they used to do. As far as our events go, everything we do now it's experiential marketing and not events. Even my boss just got promoted and his title completely changed, so now he's head of experiential marketing. And what does that mean? It's basically giving someone an experience at an event and something that they can take away and something that they can post on the internet or tell their friends about and show pictures of, and people will say, oh my God, that's so cool. I'm sure some of you guys, if you have Instagram, you've seen something like the Museum of Ice Cream, where people are like laying in sprinkles and swinging on an ice cream cone. That's kind of the stuff we're trying to bring into our events now. Everything has a photo element, everything has a hashtag, everything has a way for you to put it online. So everything we do is completely surrounded by social media. I did an event a couple weeks ago for Little Peep, which he has passed away, but he was one of those like SoundCloud rappers with face tattoos, and we put out just on Friday we put out his album after he died. So we had to create an event for all of our partners and figure out how can we integrate this, how can we make this cool without the artist being here, and it's a very sensitive thing, and we were able to do it in a way. It was right around Halloween, we did the event, and Halloween was his favorite holiday, and I hired a pumpkin carver that carved his face into this massive pumpkin, and everyone was saying like, Brittany, I think that's a little much, I don't know, and I'm like, trust me, I got a gut feeling. Turns out like this giant magazine was there, they posted it, and that was the photo that they put in their magazine. So it's just like, anything you can do, even if it's a pumpkin, or we also had like milkshakes with the marshmallow peeps in them. People are posting those on the internet. It's just whatever you can do, just because the world is so technologically advanced now. All your events really have to be, things people can be posting about all the time, constantly.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any technology-related integration that they'd like to just briefly share with the audience that you're using either on a daily basis or on a case-by-case basis? I certainly don't want to close it off.
My whole life is technology because I work for Verizon, so I can relate to exactly what you're saying. We integrate a ton of that stuff into what we do, and everything is #VZ, #Verizon, #Verizon at Super Bowl, so I totally get it, and I think what you guys did is awesome.
Great. #awesome. So just moving on to kind of continuing with creating the experience, delivering the wow, engagement. Kate, can you tell us a little bit about how you engage the 5 senses into all of your events or some of your events? How do you work that into creating an inclusive experience for your attendee?
So essentially every time that we discuss with a client what they're looking to do with an event, the creative team is always thinking to the moon, and then it's my job to look at the budget and create the 5 senses through the money that they've given us. So everyone wants to make it the coolest, most beautiful, most delicious, most Instagram worthy, but if you don't allocate a budget properly, it's not going to be any of those things. A lot of our clients right now, they say, we just need an Instagrammable moment, we don't need to feed anyone. If you don't feed me, I'm gonna be furious. Like you have to remember that people, they want to go to a place that smells great. If you do it at a nightclub that smells like beer because they were open the night before, people might not know that's why they didn't enjoy themselves, but they'll leave thinking, I don't know, something was weird about that place. So you have to really think through your budget, know the areas in which to push your client into spending a little bit more, and telling them you have so many great focal points. Pull back. Get 8 past appetizers. Don't just give them popcorn in a cone. Like, give them a little bit extra to show that you thought about it, that they were coming from work and it's 6 o'clock and they're gonna be hungry. Smell is definitely the hardest part to integrate into an event. We have a lot of clients that even have us do plugins and do aromatherapy before an event starts so that they can really transform people into the space. And a lot of spaces, even if they tried really hard, they did a really great bleach cleaning before you came in. L'Oreal Paris doesn't want to smell bleach at their event. So it's kind of my job to pull back the reins and make sure everyone's being realistic so that if you have $100,000, every single area has been allocated properly so that all 5 senses are engaged.
Great. So Sean, one of my favorite senses, food. Can you tell us a little bit about what prevalent trends you've seen in food and beverage for 2018, and then what do you just professionally anticipate the 2019 trends to be?
Fair. My favorite sense is beverage. I'll start with that first, right? So this past summer, everyone was probably seeing Aperol Spritz everywhere. Everywhere you would go, that was the drink of the summer. No? Maybe? Oh yeah, please. But they're tasty, but it's bitter. It's a bitter flavor. So this past season and most recently, a lot of bitter bitter flavors that's been on your palate. I would see that we're going to continue with some of these cordial cocktails and coming into like a pisco sour and some other drinks, really taking that and spinning it off to more regional flavors. But then also going back off the bitter concept, where things are starting to move right now with a lot of Vietnamese flavors and Thai fusions. Where that is going is a lot of the sour, and where that's going to ultimately come into is fermented foods. So in that cuisine, you're doing like a lot of pickled products, the carrots, the jalapenos, and right now a big thing about health and dietetics is thinking about probiotics. How many things do we see on the shelf right now are getting marketed with probiotics, or ailments that could be easily cured by having the right things in your gastrointestinal stomach? So really where the next step of, I see that food may be moving, is really towards more pickled products, more probiotic-friendly items, reducing added sugars, staying with the simplicity of products, and really going from there to the healthier, holistic being.
Any other thoughts on engaging the senses in day-to-day events or tips and tricks that anyone would like to add? Good. All right, fantastic. Thank you guys. And Dana, the last industry content question, focusing on integrating security measures and working with stakeholders, and primarily the relationship management piece. How do you manage that? And again, the tips and the tricks that you can share with us.
Yeah, this is huge for us right now, especially with the world we live in today. Every event that we plan or do across the country is we constantly have to think about security, from getting ourselves there safely to getting our customers there safely. From the moment we leave and fly on a plane to get on a train, it's constant, which is kind of sad that we have to think this way, but it makes you think. So to give you one example, we do a program at the Super Bowl, and we partner really closely with the NFL to go with a fine-tooth comb from the moment our customers get there to the moment our customers get to the game to the moment they leave the game. We walk the paths to make sure that they're safe. Verizon has its own corporate security department, so there's a head of corporate security, and anytime we fly or travel with any of our executives, the corporate security comes with us. So we don't play, we don't mess around. We also, when you're on the site and you're at the event, things are constantly changing too. There's threats, there's protests, there's things happening because it's a public event, so there's constantly things going on. So we are, I'm on the phone with so-and-so from the NFL who's telling me this road's closed, your truck or your van, your bus can't go down this road, which kind of can throw off your whole plan. But you kind of just have to understand that this is for your safety, and it's a big part of the event. So yeah, this is a huge thing we deal with on a daily basis. I also follow a lot on site like tweets and stuff. If people tweet out, a lot of news stories tweet out if things are happening. So I will usually be the first to know that they said that there's a bomb threat out wherever, we shouldn't do this. So it's just being on top of it and kind of being aware of your surroundings and understanding that this is you're keeping people safe. So yeah, it's scary, but we have to do it.
I'm so happy that you brought up that spontaneous event, because I feel that we oftentimes forget or neglect. We don't treat those as those managed events that we're constantly dedicating so much of our time and effort to. Then you have these spontaneous events, and I'm constantly telling my students you have to invest just as much time in those and being proactive and obviously instead of reactive on site. So I'm so happy that you brought that up. And then also just that communication piece, never dropping the ball and taking it. I think we all say it's serious and we have to be safe, but utilizing the tweets, the majority of our attendees want to be safe and be that vigilant lookout. So appreciate all of that. Does anyone have anything else that they want to? Yes, Sean.
So I'm going to share that sentiment. Working in airports, I was actually in Seattle when there was that recent situation with the individual that decided to take their own personal joyride in a plane. If everyone recalls that recently. Yes. So my property ended up, no flights could leave the Seattle airport for that period of time. But it's then in those moments just being able to effectively respond to those, like you were saying, go down different corridors, just making sure that you have your team in place, having good leadership together, to really make sure that your staff knows plan A, plan B, plan C. Just in the event planning, you always have to have that sense for what can go wrong or what can go right, and just making sure you have those levels ready to go. So.
Any other thoughts? So just to bring this full circle, what is your greatest piece of advice to creating the experience? Like, what do you feel is the most valuable information? I'll open it up to everyone, of creating that experience that's going to be that Instagram-worthy experience.
So I always, this might be a little selfish, but I always think of what I would want as going to a cool music event. I'm a huge music fan, so growing up I was going to shows all the time. So I think planning those kind of things and planning events with artists is something really important. You kind of have to think about what you want, and then also kind of like know your audience, you know, I have a couple artists that are like, you know, very, all their fans are high school kids. So I go home to my cousins and I ask, what do you think about this? What do you want? So I think you really have to just know your audience and really think about what you would want and what, you know, my team is huge on brainstorming. I think the more brains you can have on an event is better. We have an urban artist. I don't work on urban music, but I go in and sit in those brainstorms, and sometimes I say, well, we did this for a pop artist and it worked, and it can cross genre. So I think really just using your resources, using your teammates, and picking people's brains, ask them weird questions. They'll probably give you a good answer.
I would say my best piece of advice I received is that there's no universally popular opinion. So at the end of the day, if you think that, you know, everyone's saying, oh, you should do chocolate, for a lack of better examples. At the end of the day, someone's going to say they should have done cheese. And it doesn't matter. I want the cheese. So there's no universally popular opinion. So at the end of the day, you have to do what's professional and what's ethical, and what you think is the event best practice, because it doesn't matter. Some people love the smell of roses, some people hate them. There's never going to be one thing that we can all agree on in this room. So you just need to focus on what you've learned and what you've done in the past, what's worked and what hasn't, and just stick with that.
I always like to go with the mentality of listen to what's not said. So during your meetings, during your functions, always take notes of what people are actually talking about, and especially in those programming sessions, what are people always instinctively going to, and then review that after, digest it, and see what wasn't actually hit. Because that could be a really great moment to shine, to say, hey, why didn't we talk about this? Where can we spin it into this different concept? And that's where you have that wow factor for your clientele, something that if it's the first thing to come to mind, it's probably already been done. Or you can also then take that, and then like you were mentioning, from your prior programs that you've executed, well, if I did it for this client and I know how it was executed, maybe you spin it off into a way that you can then perfect it or not even sell it for any future clients. Just try to always keep that concept reinvigorated.
I would say, I have a couple things. I would say one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten was be okay if your plan changes. We as planners live in this world of like, this has to go this way, and if it doesn't go this way, it's going to be bad, and if it's not, and you make yourself crazy. I've been in plenty of situations where things haven't gone the way I planned, but because I took a deep breath and had a smile on my face, it worked and it was fine, and I just kind of went with it. So I think kind of just understanding that that's going to happen probably every single time you're at an event, it's going to be okay. Another thing, kind of to touch on what Sean said, anticipating kind of people's needs in a way, then this has worked for me. Somebody walks in my suite at our NBA game and has his coat in his hand, I immediately walk up and say, can I hang that up for you? Or I just kind of know 3 steps ahead of what they're going to say. Someone's looking around, they're looking for the bathroom, so I know, oh, the bathroom's 3 steps to your right. I attest that to JWU, and I attest that to my hospitality experience, because I remember my first class with Professor Morris. That was one of the first things he said, so I never forgot it, and it has helped me along the way.
Fantastic, great. And just so those of you who are tuning in on Facebook Live, because I know we have a virtual audience, I just want you to know there's standing room only in here, so we're really creating an experience. Just another thing that I want to know is what is the greatest misconception right now about your job? I know that there's a lot out there. I still think people in my family think that I just throw confetti around. But more importantly, how do you combat those misconceptions? What are some things you can say or do to, I think my husband thinks I'm on like a girls' night out tonight too. Let's be honest. So what do you do to what's the misconception and how do you combat that?
yeah, the biggest misconception of my job for sure is that I'm like hanging out, getting drinks with artists all the time. That is not the case. I work a lot of shows, and my main job is to bring partners back to see the artist after, because that's when they, chat with Spotify, they chat with Apple Music, and that's when the good stuff happens. So a misconception, yeah, that's huge, and I'm not just sitting around, smoking a cigarette with the band. But I think the best way to combat that is to just do my job and do it well. It's so funny because we have our CEO, so Columbia Records is under the Sony Music umbrella, and Sony has a couple other labels, and our CEO used to be CEO of Columbia. So he now is working for, he's running around doing all the other labels too, and he always says, they're not as good as you guys, and I think that's just a huge test to say, like, you might not know what we're doing all the time, but when it's somebody else doing it, that's when you know we're doing it right.
I would say I blame Samantha Jones from Sex and the City for everything. The biggest misconception is this job is not glamorous, and I am not my clients' best friends. Like, mainly on the social side, a lot of people think if you do weddings, oh, your clients must love you. You must go to drinks with them. No. I don't drink with my clients. I'm not in a black tie dress at their wedding. I am not a guest. I haven't peed. I'm dehydrated. I'm lucky if I get a roll after a cocktail hour. So I think that is the biggest misconception. And if one more sorority girl said they were the social chair and that's why they should have a job, it's not the same. It's not the same. As far as those misconceptions, there really is no way to combat that. That's what people think event planning is on my end, especially for the social side. But I can say that, answering emails at 7 o'clock in the morning before I've getting in the shower, and then, 5 minutes before I go to bed, my husband sees that, my friends see that, my family sees that, so they know that people are coming to you at all hours of the day, and if they were your best friend, they wouldn't be doing that.
So I think people sometimes think I'm the director of beer nuts and popcorn at the airport. So between traveling 8 different properties, 3 different time zones, sharing that sentiment, it's always going, and that's what events are in programming. Thinking about that, really the experience of coming into a premium lounge and you're walking into an airport. Walking into airports, always you're getting patted down, you're making friends at TSA, and it gets a little stressful, but that's the fun part about my job. I get to help people forget that stress, and they get a nice drink or two before they get on the plane, they get a little buzzed, or hopefully responsibly, and they get some, they're not driving, some really good food created by a partner chef with a great name and great brand. Walking into a Centurion Lounge and you have that signature scent, it's hitting all those aromas, the experience, and sometimes we'll do a surprise and delight and you get like a little amuse-bouche handed right in front of you. So it's a little bit more than just traveling in an airport and waiting at the terminal. There's a lot more than that in my world. And I think really about where we're all headed in our industry, people want to have that concept and that wow factor. And travel's a big thing of where people are spending their money. Travel and food, that's not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So just think some about that.
You're all correct in everything you just said. So a couple things. So working for Verizon, people think I get phones thrown at me like for free, and then they think I can fix their phones, which I can't. So one of the biggest things with me is you got to go to Super Bowl. That's so cool. Yeah, I didn't even watch the game. I don't even know who won last year. We bring our customers there, but I'm constantly making sure, do you need a drink? Are you okay? Is there anything I could do for you? And making sure they don't get lost and they get back to the hotel. And so no, I didn't watch the game. And so I get that a lot. I do also travel a lot too, so I get the, oh, that's so cool, you get to go to California. Yeah, I sat in a hotel the entire time. So, and to Kate's point, my family, my friends see how hard I work and how I'm constantly emailing. I'm constantly, I drove here from New Jersey and I had to open my laptop and answer 4 emails before I got here. So it's just constant, and I think I love this. This is what I do. This is who I am, and I think we can all attest to that. You have to just love this to do it. So, everyone thinks it's fun, but it has its moments, but we do it.
Great, and add in like a few panel discussions here and there, just a little bit more to your plate. No, it's so appreciated. These collaborative conversations and being able to share ideas and get together and network is really ultimately what our industry is about. Sharing advice, I'm constantly telling my students, like, collaborate with one another, give each other advice, give each other kudos. I think we need to kind of break down those walls a little bit in our industry and in all industries, really. So one of our final questions is, like, what best piece of advice can you give a fellow colleague in this industry from what you've learned or whatnot? Just your best piece of advice. There's been a lot already, I know, so the pressure's on. I know you don't have any weaknesses.
That's a hard one. I think that the best piece of advice I would give is just kind of like fake it till you make it. You might not know how to do something, but and then if you're not invited to a meeting and it's cool for you to go sit in, see what they're talking about if you have a free second to do so. So just like gather as much information as you can, and then that'll help you fake it a little. Just be confident in what you're doing, and if you do it wrong, the only way you're going to learn is to fail. So that's also okay. I think we don't fail, but we do, and I think that's like, those are some of the lessons I've learned over the years, is just be okay with it, own it, and then continue on.
Can I just add something real quick? I love the fake it until you make it, but take it one step further and fake it until you become it, and really like own that role. Because when I first got into the faculty position, I was like, oh my gosh, this is not, I'm like from industry, I'm behind the scenes, I'm all of that, and then I'm like, I'm owning it, like this is it. So fake it until you become it.
I think that I want people to know that always ask me like, oh, like it must be so cool, should I think about doing events? The grass isn't greener. If you don't like it now, you're never going to like it. There's going to be better jobs, there's going to be better bosses, but events is not going to change. You are always going to be in a service industry. So if you don't like people saying, where is the bathroom? Can you hang up my coat? It's not for you. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a company. If you're in a service industry and someone says, where do I hang my coat? You don't say, ask someone else. You'll always be the coat girl. So the grass isn't greener. If it looks greener, it's probably an Instagram filter.
The client, I think from my perspective, your client is always right. You can never say no. You can always say however, or you can spin that in a different way. I'm not going to say to my client, no, I can't do this, or that's not my job description, because that's why you're getting paid a service. You're getting paid a fee. Your company's there for a reason. And that's where I could do this for you. You got to be able to be smart. You got to be able to think on your feet. And I think that's where that really shows you're resilient, and that you're able to take the best of an opportunity, morph it into something in the next step, and really always think positive about the scenario, because you don't know who you're interacting with and where you're going to see them the next day or tomorrow or a year out. So we're in an industry, everyone's working together, and you're going to see each other next year maybe. So that's what I take away from that.
Yeah, I actually was going to say that, but I was going to say that my advice would be to talk to anybody you possibly can. I do it, obviously, but I think you don't realize who you're going to come in contact with, and that person could be your next boss, that person could be your next vendor, and relationship building is huge in what we do. And I think any moment you have, you're on the subway or on the bus, if you're, just chat it up and see what comes from it. And I think it could be a really good thing at the end.
Great. So a lot of what I'm hearing is that relationship management, building the relationship, anticipating needs, coming full circle, knowing your client, a little bit of knowing yourself as well, kind of like how far you can push yourself, knowing the failures but not admitting them. All really, really great stuff. Any last final thoughts on creating the experience or anything else? I don't want to leave anything out. We can open it up for a little Q&A. I can come around with a microphone.
I'll take one.
Okay, fantastic. I'll be right up.
Hello, guys. I'm class of 1996, so I'm a little ancient here. my generation was part of the Generation X, and the Gen Ys are now millennials. How do you incorporate the social media that is out now versus what we had when we first started, and getting the corporate sponsors, clients, and eventually the higher clientele to work within your respective industry?
I mean, it's a good question. I'm trying to think of an instance. I know that like we market a lot of music to everyone. We're trying to, if there's an artist out there we're trying to break, we're not just trying to market to one specific genre. And I know a lot of questions come up in meetings that are, okay, well, how do we market this to, my mom or my uncle that's in his 70s? How do you get those kind of people involved? And I think that it really is just, you have to get creative. You have to really think about, the demographic that and go outside of that a little bit. I don't know if that answers your question very much, but as far as sponsors go, it's really about, for me, it's about the artists, and we don't have a lot to do with that. We have a whole branding team, so they deal with those people, and that's really, the artist's brand. So it kind of is like not really an age thing, but social media does play a huge part in that as well.
I think I can kind of get what you're saying. We use apps a lot at our meetings. So we have people register on an app. We have people use an app to know where the hotel map is and stuff like that. So we incorporate that into our meeting and our plan. So getting the CEO who is a little older to use that app could be challenging because they look at their phone like this far away. And I think integrating, so you kind of have to, like you said, know your audience and understand, they might take a while. Or we have iPads when people check in that they use to check in. Again, I come from a technology company, so this is something that is huge for us. And so you kind of, I think having that patience and kind of knowing your audience is really good, is a big deal. Does that help?
Can I just add? Is that okay if I add something? Okay. I think it's knowing your audience, but also then knowing the platform as well. So each communication platform communicates obviously different with the intended audience. Like my mom's on Facebook, but she's definitely not on Instagram. I manage her Twitter account, and I promise you, it's probably going off her boss. But I think it's understanding also that your end user doesn't go on every single platform for the same amount of time, and the content that they're looking to get off of each platform is different. So sometimes when I want lengthy content, I'm going to scroll through my Facebook news feed and read an article or be a little bit more communicative on there, where if I'm just getting ready to fall asleep, I might just look through Instagram because I'm just scrolling through pictures. So I think it's knowing how that platform communicates, and I think one of the faults that I've seen a lot, especially with our sponsors, because I dealt a lot with sponsorship in my previous career, is that they want to push the same content on every platform, and that is not how we should be utilizing social media. It's really what content are you looking to get out, and what's the best platform for that content. So does that help?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Other questions? I got it.
I'm on it. You're welcome.
Hi, so my name is Brian Ricciardi, class of 2011. Quick question. So how do you guys develop relationships with the vendors that you work with for the different events? And do you have a particular vendor that you guys love, or do you have a particular vendor that you hate? I assume there's a story to go with that.
All of the relationships that I develop with vendors are per project. It's very, very difficult to bring in a new vendor on a big project because at the end of the day, I don't know how it's going to work, and I can't sleep at night. So I'd rather work with a vendor who I know is going to execute properly so that I can get my 4 hours of uninterrupted sleep. So generally, I think the biggest issue is, as a vendor also, vendors that don't understand that it's a team. So if we're doing a wedding and there's a photographer and he's like, when's vendor meal? Never. Eat a granola bar. So there's no specific vendor that I'll never work with, but we try everyone out on a smaller project so that we can feel comfortable with them. Or even collaborate on something that's strictly for social media. Like, let's do a really small photo shoot, you'll do the lighting, and if that is a process, then I really don't want to work with them any further. Just want everything to be smooth from the get-go. And if they don't want to do a small project with you because they don't need to show their worth, then that right there is a vendor that has an ego. You know, we're willing to do a small project with you that we didn't need to do for any particular reason other than to try it out. So I think that's the best way. That's how I got the current job I'm in, is being a vendor, building that relationship, and then going from there.
It's always a two-way street. You can't burn your vendors, and they shouldn't be burning you. You guys live off of each other. Your livelihood is to support a client, and you both need each other to get to that end goal. I've been in environments where I had colleagues support the company, and then I had to come in and take over that relationship. And they said, "Oh, thank God, he's gone." I'm like, "Oh, geez, that's not something you want to hear from one of your vendors that you're doing all this business with, or that they've supported your business and maybe saved your hide in the past." So I think it's really having that two-way relationship that can really help you prosper or can help you fail. Because if there's something that comes up and your client says, "I need something on the fly," in the event side, you have to make it work. I had to pull a snow machine out of thin air one of my corporate events, and I made it work. But that was because I had that vendor, we had that relationship, and we had that partnership. I wouldn't have been able to do that or really make that extra kudos with that client if that didn't happen. So it's all about that environment. It's part of that community in this hospitality industry.
Other questions? I don't know. Oh.
This is a broader, I don't know if I need a microphone, but okay. You all have wonderful careers and have really worked your way up. Have you, going to Johnson & Wales and leaving there and then into your career, have you ever any of you thought about going back to school or continuing your education, or maybe doing some online classes or anything that was helpful in your career that was like, oh, this was really a moment, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go back to school to do this, or maybe I'll switch careers, like aha moments, I guess?
I went back to school for 5 minutes, and then I had really high hopes. But to your point, I wish I could. It's just with the travel, I think with what we do, it's very difficult. When you're out of school for so long, God, that sounds, we are old. When you're out for a while and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get my master's and I'm gonna be really, and then you're in it and you have to write a paper, you're like, oh my God, like this. So I tried it. I don't know if I would do it again. But to kind of piggyback off that, I'm really interested in doing like a CMP kind of certification, and that was one of the things we talked about a lot in class was the different certifications, CSEP, CMP, like all those different ones. So that is something that I think would be like an aha moment for me. It's like that's one of the things it's a goal. When I don't have to travel, I'm gonna do it.
I'll share some of that sentiment. I have aspirations, doesn't mean now, not tomorrow, but I've thought in the future I want to go more into contract management and procurement. So right now what I'm doing, I think I have a really good foundation for that, but I've had personal thoughts. I'm not sure what I'll do yet, but I've had some personal thoughts thinking I might go back to some schooling or just maybe get some certifications. And that's something that it always helps if you're an FMP, CMP. It helps you diversify yourself. It helps you step also, by doing that certification, helps you put your foot into that industry to think about maybe if I want to continue down that road or take a step back out. So without doing that full financial investment or time investment. And we all live busy lives. Think about how you're going to step away from your family to then go into extra schooling. You have to find that happy medium. So I think some certifications is actually a really good way to find that mutual ground.
I think about it all the time. Mostly because I don't think I have many more, I hope I do, but I don't think I have many more teachable years in me that I'm really going to want to focus. I haven't been out of school that long. So if I'm going to do it, it needs to be sooner rather than later for me, because I know that, you know, later down the line as the career progresses and as family progresses, I don't think I'll have the bandwidth to do a thesis. I just can't even imagine it. You're like, no. You're like, I haven't thought about it. I'm not interested in that.
Answer, sorry. No, but I will say that I did think about it for a second, but I just know that's not, school was never like my best thing that I ever did. Like, I'm just, I mean, Johnson & Wales was, but like, I just don't, I'm not a great student. So I just feel like, but to counter that, there are so many, you don't have to go get your master's to keep learning. I think keeping to learn. Yeah. Just to keep learning.
Thank you for saying
that.
Yeah.
But I do think like if you're specifically interested in learning more about your industry or other industries, I've come to find out recently there are master classes on like everything, and you can go sign up for, it's either a day or a week, and you can kind of do it quickly and you know, not do it with our busy schedules and you're working full time. You might be able to go sit in a master class on a Saturday and learn one cool thing that you can bring back to your job.
Come back, everybody.
I'll go back.
We have time for one more question if there is one out there. We'll have plenty of time. I think, yes, we are all sticking around.
I got one last question.
Okay.
Have you all ever had to fire any of your clients at one point in time or another?
Fire clients.
I don't think they use the word fire anymore.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
I've
fired staff.
I know, that's staff. I'm talking about clients that were not necessarily up to standards what you're looking for as far as working with them, or they were just this bad all the way around.
We put ours into writing several occasions as almost like warnings in school.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, while I've been here, it's never been the case, but there is several instances and where we document things so that if things just are completely abusive and totally insane, that we can say, look, we don't think that we're the right vendor for you. We can recommend someone who can take this project on, but as long as you're documenting everything so that later down the line, if things do get legal, you can say, you know, we've really addressed some of these issues in the past, nothing's been resolved, and this is why we wanted to, you know, end our contract together. But as long as you document everything, they'll still try to get their money back, but at least you have one leg to stand on.
I have a piggyback on that, on the second part to that. I have a client, a cornerstone client. I fired them, and now they came back. How do you handle something in a situation where it's kind of
raise your price. If you'll do it for this amount of money,
right? Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah, that's it.
There you go.
There you go.
That's good advice.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Professor Pansiera, and thank you so much for our wonderful panel. Let's give them one more round of applause. That was not only insightful, educational, it was probably the most fun I've had at a panel discussion, actually, so thank you for that. That was very enjoyable. I'd like to invite Liza Gentile up to the front here. We have a small token of appreciation for each of you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And as all of you probably know, you see our names on emails, but Liza Gentile is our Manager of Alumni Relations in Providence, and she is, you know, beyond incredible to our team. She's so dedicated. The effort, the passion, everything that she puts into it is so much more than just a name on an email. She really pulls it together and makes us in our department makes us look so good, and we really appreciate all your efforts. So thank you so much. Big round of applause for Liza for putting this all together. She's my right hand, my travel buddy, so we go way back. So this concludes our presentation part of the evening. We invite you to visit with us downstairs at the Foundry Kitchen on the lobby level. I got that right. I brought this up just in case. Where you'll be able to spend some time with our panelists as well as with each other. Our faculty members that came from Providence to visit with you all this evening, please make sure you spend some time with them. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Thank you to all of you who took time out of your evening to be with us tonight. The night is just beginning. Thank you to everyone on Facebook Live for joining us. We really appreciate you tuning in. And thank you. And we'll head downstairs now. Enjoy.
Great job, ladies.